Okay, the attendees are rolling in, Kiki. I think we're at
Great.
10, 11.
Let me know when we get the majority there.
Okay, great.
I apologize about my lighting. I still have not figured out an adjustment issue in my house and my machine. So I feel like I have a dark shadow here that comes in and out, but some tech expert needs to chat me and tell me how to figure that one out.
It comes and goes. You
Yeah.
actually look pretty good.
No,
most
I
of the
think it's
time.
your setting on your computer for the, I think it's
Right,
for the
right.
video camera. We'll have to figure that out if there's a light setting.
I went through the whole thing and Googled it for hours, and usually I'm pretty astute, but missed that one.
I know. Well, yeah, sometimes it doesn't work when you change the setting. Okay, we're at 23 attendees and 12 of us in the panelists. So I think we're looking pretty good.
And there's a silver lining for the pandemic in that we would have probably never been able to put this large of a regional group together in a physical meeting without Zoom. So as frustrating as it has been, and all things considered, it's a great feat that we're able to put 30, 40 people together on a regular basis and get some big things talked about. So having said that, let's get this meeting started. So this is the third advisory group meeting that we've had for the Regional Housing and Growth Issues Partnership. I've been referring to it as the H&G Partnership just because it's long. And this is comprised of the working group members, which are members of all of the regional cities, as well as the county and the Kootenai Metropolitan Planning Organization, some electeds and all their city planners involved. This particular meeting, we have additional panelists who are experts or have reference or presentations which are addressing the priority 1 poll item that this group sent out a number of months ago on what the advisory group and their peers wanted us to work on first. And that was conversations regarding collaborative efforts to preserve open space on prairie. So our makeup is a little bit different. The chat box is available. There will be some presentations with Q&A at the end. So we will be able to get a little bit more engagement there. So first I'm going to just share a couple of announcements. A couple things have gone on. A lot of things have gone on between the last time this entire advisory group got together. The working group has been very, very busy, and there's been interim emails that have gone out to try to keep the groups and the advisory group up to speed as to what's going on. So one is that KMPO did have an open public comment period on the Hutter alignment update. That period has closed, but there was not, I think, the participation that KMPO had hoped as far as responses on that. There's more information about that on the KMPO website, but I'm bringing that up because the traffic in the area, the advisory group and their constituents in the poll came in an extremely pretty high priority for us, but there was very little engagement from the community on what they wanted to see during that particular one. Their number 2 opportunity is Coeur d'Alene's comprehensive plan input. That public comment period is still open. Hillary, would you mind just doing a real quick brief on how the advisory group members can push out to their constituents and their peers on how that can be accessed?
Yes, thank you, Kiki, and good afternoon, everyone. So I had sent out an email last week. We have a virtual open house taking place for the City of Coeur d'Alene and our partners at CDA 2030. For our comprehensive plan update, which is also a vision validation and an update to the implementation plan that CDA 2030 uses to monitor priority actions for City of Coeur d'Alene and the greater Coeur d'Alene area. So on the project website, if you can see it here at the top of the screen, you can get to it without having to type in the public input if you just do envisioncda.org. And so this takes you to the homepage for the site. And if you scroll down on this, it kind of tells you how to participate. Hold on. It's not looking right. So it tells you how you can participate. So we had 2 drop-in sessions last week that were on Zoom. Both were recorded and they're both available now on the city's YouTube channel. So you can watch those with an overview of the project. And we had some Q&A discussion with community members. And then it tells you how to participate. If you scroll down, there is an online survey and then an online mapping exercise as well. And so we'd love feedback from you and your membership if you feel like that's appropriate. I had one of our advisory group members reach out and say that their focus is so specific that it wouldn't really make sense for Coeur d'Alene, but would love to have you participate. So there's information, you can see these click here's, there's videos, and then the documents. We've broken down the plan into a couple parts. So they're PDF documents, you can review those. And then you can email us comments on parts 1, 2, and 4. If you have any feedback, part 3 is the online survey. So that's really the goals, objectives, and the priority action items. So that's right here is a survey. And then the mapping is an interactive map. So you can click and watch the video about what does our future land use map look like. And then you can zoom in. You can use these things here to toggle, drop a pin, make some comments. So love to have feedback. This is going through the 2nd, so this Friday, and here are the links to the 2 recordings of those live drop-in sessions. So thank you all for helping spread the word. Appreciate it.
Great. Almost have to charge you for an ad for that. I'm not sure, but okay. So the third thing I wanted to let you know is if you still are unsure as an advisory group member or leader of your group of what your participation in this group should be or what your obligations should be, please email me. My email's all over and I'll be happy to have a phone call with you. I've talked to a couple people and it's been very beneficial to get them a little straightened out. The last thing is there's been a number of newspaper articles and that are regarding housing and growth, annexations, plans and development. And I am working on a way to try to collectively put those together in a chronological package that could be linked to the KMPO site or from a separate page. And I will give you a report on when I come up with a positive action item there. It's just got some hiccups that I haven't been able to work out yet. So now moving on to, since our last meeting, we had, the work group went through a couple of different things. We were charged with completing a summary of some sort on the priority 1 goal, which was the the open space collaborative effort on the prairie. And that's what we'll be talking about today. But before that, at our last work group meeting, we discussed moving the information that was currently on the KMPO website to another location. We had a number of options. KMPO is not being paid to house this for us. We're not funded in any way by any entity. This is all just the regional group trying to come together to work together on solving some problems. And we came up with that it's going to stay status quo for now. KMPO has been very generous in doing that for us. They also were very vocal in saying they don't have a problem not doing it for us. So we're going to stay where we are right now just for ease of use and see if we can come up with some new ideas to make it easier to find. So that was a discussion. The other discussion we had came out of the advisory meeting, and it was regarding possible renegotiations of the area of city impacts. We had a great presentation by Rand Wickman, and Rand is a land use consultant with about 30 years experience in this area. He has some clients right now that include City of Athol, the Aquifer Protection District, the Jacqueline Land Company, and he also represents some private landowners with about 50,000 acres of land. So he has some in-depth knowledge and he gave us some direction. We had a lengthy discussion on what renegotiating any of those boundaries might be. It concluded with the fact that the people who have the authority to continue that discussion, which would be the city planners, the city legal departments, and their consultants and experts, will keep that discussion alive, possibly forming a separate subcommittee that will work specifically on that issue to see if the ACI boundaries need to be adjusted, and if so, how that will work out. So that's the working group is moving away from that and moving that onto that type of a subcommittee situation. Did anybody else, Hillary, do you know that I missed anything regarding that working group conversation?
I think that was good. Thank you.
Okay. So the next thing that we talked about at working group was putting together some, the schools update was the priority 2 action item that we got out of the poll. And that was that the people who had responded to that wanted us to find a way to have schools funded. There was a subcommittee that was formed of the principals from 3 schools and adding a former principal, Jerry Keene. Since then, Scott Maben and Jeff Fuller have been added to that committee because of the timing of the year-end year end of school, they haven't formally met. They've had ongoing discussions, and knowing that that was an action item that the citizens came through this group and wanted to have more discussion and information on, but they have not yet formally met. So when they do, I'll bring back a report on that. So the other thing that was tied with traffic was housing, and we're going to have a discussion at the end of this on further action towards that, but I'm going to give you a brief update. You all got a heads up email regarding the housing assessment, and that is being paid for by PAHA, which is the Panhandle Affordable Housing Alliance, as well as the CDA EDC, our Economic Development Council, and it's being conducted by the University of Idaho. So we've been working in just breakneck speed here to put together questions, to put together interviews, set up Zoom link meetings, and try to get this assessment data gathered as quickly as possible. Real briefly, what's happened to date is that there are survey questions that are going to be sent out, and a lot of the advisory group members will receive those. They're going to come in 2 different emails. One is, for lack of better terms, you'll have instructions in the email on to how to use that. But the first one is geared more towards city leaders, employers, boards, and administrators. And it's going to have a certain set of questions. The other email will go to the same group, and its set of questions is geared more towards staff, employees, frontline workers, and the questions won't be the same thing. So how each of you advisory group members determine you're going to send those out, they will be SurveyMonkey links. So how you decide you're going to send those out and what groups within your organization will of course depend on the size of your organization and what your staff makeup is. So the last thing on that is that there is another group that is set up for June 30th. There will be more of these, but they're doing live Zoom interviews. They already have a live Zoom interview group for the 30th, 4 of them actually. One is builder developers. The second one is water protection issues organizations. The third one is people who deal with the low-income ALICE population. And the fourth one is the Association of Realtors regionally. So those 4 are already set up, and they will be adding potentially other groups to do those live interview surveys with to inform this study. The last thing is that there has been ongoing work that this group has been helping me do into actually collect hard data, which will inform this study as well. But that data is basically going to organizations that have HR departments or a point person that can actually obtain how many positions that organization had opened, that they made a job offer to an individual and the offer was declined because of inaccessible housing. So though there's about 16 different organizations that we're working to gather that hard data on numbers with that right now. So that's kind of the update on the housing assessment. Is Maggie in the panelist group or close to the panelist group? Maggie Lyons is the executive director with PAHA, and she is the other one spearheading with University of Idaho this particular study. And I want to make sure that she there wasn't something I missed that she wanted the advisory group and this group to know.
I'm bringing her in as a panelist. Maggie, are you on? Is there anything you'd like to add to what Kiki's already talked about for the housing assessment?
Yeah, hi, everybody. No, I think Kiki covered it really well. It is a bit of a breakneck speed to try and get what they're calling the primary data gathering. And that's reaching out to really all the parties and trying to get as much information really relevant to specifically to Kootenai County as we possibly can from a number of different sources. So she covered it well.
Good. Thanks, Maggie. Good. I'm glad.
Thank you, Kiki. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Maggie. Okay, so we're going to move into, unless there were any specific questions about the announcements I'd made so far.
Kiki, there is one. So the first one, Ed, we can respond in the, we'll type the answer for you for the affordable housing question, but there is a question too about the housing assessment and if they're going to be interviewing the average wage earners or just primarily builders, developers, lenders, real estate and industry people, et cetera.
I think that way that the University of Iowa is handling that is the section 2 that I just mentioned of the survey questions.
Right.
The average wage earners would be the employees of any corporation who's involved in any of these organizations. So I would suggest, for example, that if a Chamber of Commerce decided they were going to send the section 2 series out to their businesses would have the discretion to send that section 2 series of questions based on the employee's experience of what's going on. I believe that is the average wage earner and probably the largest group of people that would be touched by the question.
Great.
I
Thank
think
you.
that answers it.
Those are the only questions at this point. I think we can move on. Thanks.
Okay, great. Okay, so what we've been working on is wanting to summarize this priority 1 question. So we have a couple of presentations today, and how we're going to set this up is we have Amy Bates Reynolds, and she has the one who had done some presentations regarding sports complex plans out on the prairie. So she's going to give us a little less than a 10-minute overview of that. Then we'll have a couple questions and answers, and then we'll move to Lauren Scarcella, who is a large farmer rancher out on the prairie, and he has some other ideas on how, if the citizens of this region want to preserve open space, they can encourage the support of ag on the prairie. So I'm going to just go ahead and step right into Amy. If you want to test your mic and go ahead and start, then I'll be just monitoring the clock, and we'll do some questions and answers at the end.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sounds good?
Please bear with me. I'm not a professional at anything, so I feel very out of place here, but so I just hit share screen, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, that's correct. And then you'll probably have to click the button to verify once you select it. Yep. Looks like
Okay.
it's working. Yep, we see it, Amy.
Okay, perfect. So like this says, my name is Amy Bates Reynolds. My partner, Michelle, is not with us apparently, but what we are wanting to do is a multi-building sports complex, just so there's things for people to do. We want to keep it local here. We want it to stay here. Who is it for? It's for families in our community and in the surrounding areas. It's for Parks and Rec. It's for competitive sports and AAU leagues. It's for our swim teams that we're desperately in need of competitive swimming pools, because everyone knows we only have the Croc Center really that has the pool for us all. And for travel sports. The travel sports industry is a $19.2 billion industry, and we would love to be able to tap into that a little bit. Why do we need this? Because there's an increasing need for facilities. I coach pretty much every sport. My partner, Michelle, she also coaches, and it is a heck of a time trying to find gym time for basketball, for volleyball, for anything. And so we need buildings for that. The current rate of population growth is another thing that why we're wanting this. The popularity of sports industry, having these kinds of buildings and municipalities is great for health for people and for their well-being. It keeps kids out of trouble. And then to have a safe climate controlled environment for year-round sports. I mean, we have a long winter here and it's hard to find space for our kids. What it will bring to our community. We know that it would bring local jobs. We're hoping that it would bring in other businesses, economic stability for those jobs. Safety, it's great to have a safe place for our kids and for our families to come hang out and be a part of. It'll keep everyone active. We would love to have local events happen, competitions in sports and concerts, family gatherings. And we want to preserve some of the land here on the prairie for green space and parks and community activities. We think that's super important. There's so much growth going on right now that we're worried that we're not going to have a lot of space for those kinds of things to happen. It will bring money to our community. We don't want it to be a tax burden on people. So we have done research and started looking into a TIF, which is tax increment financing. And we're hoping that we'll be able to get in touch with that kind of thing. It will create local jobs. It will be an area where there's not houses being built up on top of each other, and it will boost local businesses. So these are two examples of places that we have done research on that are sports complexes. This Grand Park in Westfield, Indiana is actually pretty amazing. We have spoken to the mayor of that town actually, and he was the one that told us about the TIFs, and he is so amazing. And so this Grand Park, it's in a town of Westfield, Indiana. Like I said, it's a town of 39,000 people. And in the first year alone with this being open, the overall economic impact was $145 million they brought into their economy. And like I said, he was just really amazing. It has 31, it's 400 acres. There's 31 soccer, lacrosse, and football fields, and there's 26 baseball diamonds. There's 10 miles of pedestrian and so walking and bike trails. And they also just added a 370,000 square foot indoor facility with 3 full-size turf fields. And they get 1.2 million visits a year with that. And it's just an amazing spot. The next one is Rocky Mount, North Carolina. This is a little bit smaller of a place, but it's kind of spread out. They have fields that are 4 to 5 minutes from this building. And it's a town of 54,000 people. My partner, Michelle, she just was there over spring break. And she said it was an amazing, it was packed. There was meetings and wrestling tournaments and all kinds of tournaments going on while she was there. And she said it was just really busy there and it was a great place. So they have 8 basketball courts and they have 16 volleyball courts, and they have meeting rooms and party rooms and a big family entertainment center. So they're another spot that we have been researching quite a bit. And they have created 185 jobs for their local employees. And when this came to their town, this whole road back here, if you can see behind that building a little bit, that whole town was dead. And within them announcing that, within a week, all of those buildings had been bought up and purchased on the other side of that, and revitalized and renewed for businesses. And that was a really great thing for that community to happen. They also put an urgent care in the back side of that that's attached to that, which is a great thing also with sports. So in our main building, we want it to be a multi-building project. In our main building, we would have swimming pools. We would have competition pools, because here we have the Kroc Center. We share the Kroc Center pools with all the high schools around.
Hey, Amy, I don't want to mess up your flow, but I don't want you to run out of time. So we're
Okay.
you're only gonna have about another 3 or 4 minutes here.
Okay, so I'll just run through that then. We want the pools. We need that desperately. And our main building B will be court sports. So we'll have basketball and volleyball. In our building C, we'll have soccer, football, rugby, and lacrosse. And those are great things to have in the winter too. Then in our building D, we'll have tennis and pickleball, which is a growing popular sport. And then in our building E, we'll have a gymnastics center, and we will have plans for Rad Kids is to teach kids self-defense and teach them how to be safe. And then once you get past the age of 13, then it turns into an actual self-defense class. So outdoor activities, we want all of these things for the summer activities would be along the biking and walking paths. And then for winter, the walking paths would turn into cross-country ski paths and some ice skating spots. And so those things are super important to us. They're great for the community. And so then our mission is just to unite people together in a healthy, safe environment. We want it to be a fun place for everyone to come hang out and be a part of. And we want to give back to the community because we feel like this community is worth it. So that is all for us.
Great. Thank you. Why don't we take a few questions specifically directed to this topic, and then we'll do some more after the second one. Anyone have a question?
Like we do have a few questions in the Q&A, and then another one just popped up in the chat. So the first one, is this current presentation being considered as a county project or just in Rathdrum? This would be great if a large regional recreation area in the center of the prairie.
Right. We were told that a recreation district would be a great idea for that. And so it would be county. We were planning on putting it in the Rathdrum area just because the growth going out to Athol and Spirit Lake and all those places have a place a little bit closer. So, but we're open to anywhere. We want quite a bit of land for it. And we're a little worried that that we're running out of time with the expensive land at this point, but we want to see this happen. We want to give something back to the community. So I think a recreation district would be for the whole county.
Another question, how much land is needed?
We have been looking at a piece of property that is 80 acres, but I would love more than that just so we can build on if we ever want to put outdoor baseball diamonds or outdoor soccer fields.
Okay, so that was another question. So we got
Yeah.
that one. The question about how would this get funded?
Well, that's what we were looking into the TIF to see if we could get it that way. Our other options would just be to go find investors that would be willing to help out that way.
Okay, so another point of clarification on that. So Park Foundation or other financing sources kind of tied into that.
Yeah.
You're kind of looking at all options.
Yeah.
And then what about, who is the we? Is it just you and your partner? or do
So
you have
me and my,
another
me
person?
and my
Okay.
business partner. Yeah. Yeah. And the mayor that we spoke to in Westfield, Indiana, he said, get a commission together to have them help get things done. So we've started looking into putting a commission together as well. And so I think that would help a lot.
Any other questions?
There are a few more, but how are we doing on time? Because some of these could be pushed to after Lauren's presentation. Would you like to do that? Keep us
Let's
on
do
track.
that. And Amy,
Okay.
thank you. I
Great.
appreciate it. I think that at this time, I did want to share that there's been quite a few folks invited to, be involved because of the presentation today. I mentioned at the beginning of this that they are some panelists and some are just viewing, but we did invite Doug Eastwood, and Doug Eastwood is a former Parks Director from
Okay.
the city of Coeur d'Alene, and he also sits on the Idaho State Parks Board now. He was appointed by the governor after he retired, so that was good for him. Rand Wickman, as I mentioned, has in-depth knowledge about land use and planning. And I know that, I believe it's Nick. I'm not sure if he's here today or not. We did invite all of the Parks Department directors from the cities. Nick Goodwin from the county has worked diligently for a number of years on some sort of a large county wide type complex or park. John Mueller is listening in here today. And I'm mentioning these names because I want them to know that for us, we hope to be able to generate subcommittees to move forward plans like these. And
Okay.
these are the people who are involved in the group. And so then that way, this group can be here as a resource to answer further questions or help legal facilitation or any kind of planning efforts or any kind of, just information and facts that would be required to move that forward. So
That
let's
would be
take some
amazing.
questions.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, Amy. We appreciate you being here and your vision. And let me move on now to Lauren, if you're ready, and then we'll do a few questions at the end of that. And then I have a few other things I want to mention to the group.
And Kiki, if I can mention, so Amy, stay on, please, because we'll have that discussion after Lauren's. So, okay, thank you.
And is Lauren is actually,
Lauren is here and Linda, so. just need to
okay.
get them. Lauren, are
You bet.
you?
Hey, guys.
There you are.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak with you guys today.
Appreciate you being here, Lauren. Lauren and I have had some good discussions on things that, as I mentioned,
Did
if
we
the
lose you?
community,
Or did you lose me? Hey, no
You're there,
problem.
but
Hey,
you
what
guys-
I've got is a few pages of notes I'd like to read to this group.
Sure.
Kind of help you gain perspective where I'm coming from. I sit on a number of boards, but I'm speaking today more as a private citizen than anything, and hopefully a voice for ag. I'm not against growth, I'm just pro ag. So I hope as I read this, I don't come off as a person who's against growth. We have to have growth, we need growth, but we have to manage it, I do believe. So if I could, I'll just start reading from my notes, if that's okay with you guys.
yes, please, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm in the Twin Lakes area. Our family has been there since 1910. We raise cattle, hay, and some small grains. We're primarily a cow-calf operation, but we do sell hay, and we have timberland that we manage and graze as well. With what is owned, what is leased, hay that we do on shares, we manage just over 1,500 acres. It's very much a family operation. I have 4 sons and a daughter that very much want to see our place continue for another 100 years, if at all possible. Something to remember is farms aren't just farms, but families as well. Farms, ranches don't just happen. It takes generations to acquire, to build, to grow, and not to mention learn. I truly believe that farmers and ranchers that we have left on the prairie now are the best of the best. Let's see, I kind of got ahead of myself here. Let's see. I'm working here, guys. They haven't survived by being sloppy, but rather by hard work and perseverance. I sit on a number of boards. I do have a unique perspective of agriculture in our area and how important it is to our quality of life. I'm not sure where to begin about American agriculture, but I'll do the best I can. I've never felt that we produce, but yet I've never been more concerned about our industry as a whole. There's in this country that feed 98% of the rest, as well as a large part of the world. We are stewards of the land. We manage and build our soils, store carbon, help keep our planet cool, protect our aquifers, lakes, and streams, all the while producing food, fiber, jobs, and as part of our national security as well. There are those that believe that America's ability to produce proteins, grains, meats, dairy, fiber will keep us a superpower well into the future. There's no doubt that domestication of livestock is the basis for civilization as we know it. That said, we need land, water, and air to do that. Farmers, ranchers, and forestry continually work towards sustainability. For example, we recently completed a sizable timber sale, and we chose our foresters, our logging contractors, log truckers, etc. All through the process, soil health, soil microbes, timber regeneration, sustainability was a part of the dialogue. As I drive across our prairie and see what has been lost, I've seen that growth as we know it is simply unsustainable if for no other reason it's appetite for raw land. Topsoil is stripped, gravel is exposed, carbon released, ground laid bare with no filter for our aquifer. It's hugely enough for being a part of this today. This is a pressing issue. I've sat through workshops and meetings at least twice before where we've talked about growth and how to management, all well intended and all well attended, but with no results. But I have learned this. Borders and boundaries are controversial and simply won't work. Private property rights are alive and well in Idaho, as they should be. To tell someone what they can or can't do with their land is a tough sell. I believe what is needed is a voluntary program that farmers can sign up for to help preserve open space, perhaps on 5 or 10-year intervals with incentives to continue on. Property tax breaks, cash leases are not too much to ask when one considers all that agriculture does for our community, our land, and the resources that we all depend on. These leases would not lock up land, but rather help families maintain their operations and yet give them a degree of flexibility to change and adapt as needed. Conservation easements and trusts do have forever is a long time. Managing a business from the grave could be difficult for future generations to deal with. Keep in mind that farms are businesses too. At some point, it has to pencil out. We have all seen tax breaks and other incentives for large companies to come in here in the hopes of jobs and industry. I see no reason why we can't offer that to agriculture as well. We employ people, we buy expensive machinery, we buy tires at Lex Schwab, we support the local Napa store, we volunteer and contribute to our communities, yet we require few services and promote open space for all to enjoy. I believe we should work hard at keeping farmers on the land and keeping the families we have on their farms. They have the tribal knowledge, the experience already. I've heard it said that lands could be bought and leased back to farmers, and that may have some merit. However, that could take time, be costly, need oversight, and raise questions for bias. Growth is rife with problems and fallout. A lot has been said about the wakes on our area waters. Growth leaves a huge wake that erodes what is dear to us. Agriculture promotes what we love and need. Ecosystems and wildlife depend on it, and so will our grandchildren. We have an opportunity here to manage and control carbon, mitigate climate swings, have a level of local production of food that COVID-19 has shown us is important, or have we already forgot that lesson? In closing, I think time is short to do something proactive, not reactive. The Hutter bypass will happen. That will forever define the prairie. The boundaries of Coeur d'Alene, Post Falls, Hayden, and Rafton will be limited by this, and the prairie will be smaller yet again. We have an opportunity to do something about carbon, climate, airshed, viewshed, watershed, not to mention the quality of life and the reasons we all live here and the reasons we want our kids to stay here. We should start with preserving lands over to and adjacent to the aquifer, then branch out to open space as well. Like Rodney Dangerfield says, I don't get no respect. I don't think agriculture gets the respect it needs. And just like lakefront property, they aren't making it anymore. Again, I'm not against growth. I'm just pro-ag. The reason I say we should start with protecting lands over the aquifer, it won't be too many more years and a million people and industry will be drawing from that aquifer. And it won't be that many more years. There'll be another million following that. We're blessed with a beautiful aquifer, but we need to keep in mind it's there as well as the lands that are over it. I'm open to questions or thoughts. I hope you didn't feel I got on a tangent or on a soapbox, but this is near and dear to me. Obviously, we've been there for over a century. We'd like to be there for another century if at all possible.
Lauren, thank you. We really appreciate that. And I think these are questions that a lot of people have had on their minds, and you brought up some excellent points about property rights and some excellent points of that maybe this group hasn't talked about before. So I'm super appreciative of your time being here and willing to connect with this group. Are there some specific questions that were directed towards Lauren's comments?
I don't see any yet. Have you seen any, Melissa or Bob? Oh, actually, oh wait, maybe there was on the percentage of products. Sorry, I didn't see that one up yet. So would it be viable to allocate a certain percentage to products you produce to only our local area to acquire such a tax break?
require a certain percentage of products you produce to own your local area to acquire such a tax break?
I don't know that I understand that question, guys.
Nash, you want to clarify your question in the Q&A, please?
Kind of wonder if they don't mean you have to be a local.
You know, I'm sure funding is on everybody's mind. At current time, I also sit on the Aquifer Protection Board. Again, I'm not speaking for that board. I'm speaking as a private citizen and a landowner. You know, there's 67,780 parcels that are taxed $5.74 a piece for aquifer protection. The Aquifer Protection Board is just a little over 500,000. And we do reinvest those funds back in the community. But again, the aquifer is pretty well defined. Obviously, it's over the prairie. Obviously, there's a number of contributing recharge sites that need to be considered as well. But
Looks like we're losing Lauren here.
You could possibly, and again, allocate funds to a family to maintain open space and preserve the aquifer. You know, agriculture doesn't always get the best rap in the press these days, in the media as in general, if you will. But, you know, I read a lot and I watch the news a lot. My boys tell me I shouldn't watch the news because I yell at the TV too much. But I do read a lot of ag magazines. There's a lot of good thing about agriculture. It's an amazing industry. Obviously, we're not hunter and gatherers anymore. It's not 40 acres and a mule. The face of agriculture continues to change, and it will continue to change. We strive towards sustainability. You bet. Go ahead.
Sorry, Lauren. The lease proposal you're talking about, how does that differ from the CRP, which is already offered by the state?
There are CRP programs. It kind of depends on what crops you raise.
Can you guys
But
explain
CRP pretty much locks up that land. For example, I also serve on the USDA board, FSA board down at Plummer, Idaho, so I'm a little familiar with CRP. CRP pretty much locks it up. And the only thing it's really good for is nesting, aquifer protection, but there's basically no level of production. It's rather restrictive. If you're corn, wheat, peas, lentils, things of that nature, you can sign up for that. But there's not a lot of that on the Rafton Prairie at this time. I believe I only know of one parcel that's enrolled in CRP.
Can you just describe what CRP is for the people who don't understand that?
CRP is a crop reduction program. It was initially brought on to somewhat curb the overproduction of wheat at a period of time and some other commodities. So it's kind of implemented through the federal government, if you will, to regulate some commodity productions. It's worked to some degree. It's rather, honestly, the money from CRP is pretty minimal to landowners, in my opinion, which is why you don't see a lot of that on the prairie.
Great. Were there any other questions directed towards Lauren's presentation?
There was a few follow-up ones from Nash, I think clarifying his question. So kind of wondering, could there be incentives or tax breaks if you kept a certain percentage of your livestock or your, the butchered livestock here, or do you ship all your products out of the community?
Well, we do that could be a possibility. We do sell local locker beef. We sell calves that we wean, also sell to locals, or not so much local stockyards, but to the stockyards that in turn go to feedlots. So we do have local production. We do sell some local. I think COVID in a weird, twisted sense of the word is going to do some good things for agriculture. I think it already has. And we could structure something toward that. I'm not exactly sure how, but and I'm game. I'll just throw out my phone number to you people, 661-6090. I'm happy to talk to you people after the fact or some evening. I will warn you that we have this pesky thing called a growing season, and we're in the middle of that now. We're cutting hay, we're busy people. But as hot as it is, it was kind of nice to come in here and talk to you guys today.
Great. Well, with that, here's what I'd like to do. I've got a couple of things we need to kind of tie up before we leave here at about 4 o'clock, what our group wants us to do at our next working group meeting. We have a couple of things that we already just know we need to do, and that's work a little bit more on our schools committee program. I want to make sure I have the ability to connect any of these entities who are interested in some sort of prairie open space collaborative, and maybe that will be just putting together, you know, an email interview or an email Zoom with all of those who are interested and available. And I've got emails I can connect here and do that later on. So that's one thing. And then putting what the other items we need on our work group agenda. So any other questions for Amy or for Lauren regarding these presentations today? And I appreciate it, you guys. I think that there are a lot of people who have the same thoughts on their mind. I know that I've had long email information from, I believe it's Nick Snyder is the county, I'm getting a nod, so I got the name right, Parks Director, on different things he has come up with over the last number of years on creating parks out on the prairie. So there's a lot of interest around this. What it needs is for all of you to connect and decide what should or could or may be able to be moved forward. So I will help facilitate that and use this group however I can to answer your questions on that. So any other questions for Lauren or Amy?
Amy, I know you were responding to some of those questions, so appreciate that. There were 2 more that look like they're still open questions. I don't know if those have been responded to yet. One is asking if the plan for the complexes would be free to the community or membership-based, similar to the Croc. And then the second one, could our current sports commission work on this project?
I typed an answer. I think they typed that question twice, actually.
Okay, I thought so. Thank you.
I would say that the outdoor activities, walking and bike paths, all the activities around those paths would all be free to anyone who wants to come be a part. And I would say the indoor things, sports would be membership based or rentable for teams that want to come in and practice. And so I would say it would be half and half.
I would also add that there's a couple of other organizations around here. The ice rink, the Kootenai Youth Organization, that group. There's a number of those around that you may want to add into your pot as well. So would there anything else that was not answered or?
Yes. I guess we'll try and be quick on this one. So how much do you project that the overall project will cost for the 80-acre site and facility?
That's another thing that we're in the process of trying to discover. So the main building with the pool would obviously be the most expensive of the 3. The others, we want to do almost steel-like buildings to save on costs. So we're not positive on that at this point. But I'm sure it would cost a pretty penny.
A really pretty penny, especially with building prices right now. But
yes,
you know, and obviously I think everyone here knows that this is the type of conversation that is a seed starter. This isn't something that you can say we have the answers, this is going to happen in a year, but it certainly connects the right people with an ongoing and long-term vision and lets the rest of the community know that there is a point for these open space conversations to move forward. So I encourage you to do that and let me know how we can facilitate anything from beyond that.
That would be amazing. Thank you.
Great. Thank you guys both for being here. And like I said, most of these emails and connection numbers we have. So that's what we'll continue to do, is be a resource. I think where we're at on the agenda is closing up. I need to remind everyone if there's frequently asked questions that are not answered on that Campio site, that you send those to me so that we can get those out, get them vetted and put them up there. So if you have any other questions regarding these presentations, we'll be able to follow up later on that as well. So
Hey, Kiki, could I add a couple comments, please?
Sure. As long as I don't have to.
If you need thoughts or anything from Yeah, I'm kind of, again, hey, I'm a little bit Zoom challenged, as you know. If you need thoughts or anything from other producers, we're certainly not the only family on the prairie. We can come up with other names and faces that could better answer some questions. I will share this with you. There's a neighboring parcel to our place that part of it did sell, part of it is for sale. But unfortunately, the price is no longer linked.
Lauren, I don't think we're getting you there.
So,
Lauren, can you hear me?
Okay,
Because we're not.
I can hear you now.
Yeah, we've got you kind of cutting out right there. But I think that your conversation is one that needs to happen in that smaller subcommittee to connect these people together. And I certainly hope that all of you will come together and we can form this subgroup to continue this conversation on any activity out on the prairie. And then we'll certainly be able to report back to the larger advisory group council here if there's any assistance or information you need pushed out from them. But let's move that conversation into that subcommittee. And then what I do need to do is we've got a working group meeting that is going to happen in 2 weeks. We as a working group are going to summarize these presentations, all the data we found, put that together so that there is a collective package that says, here's the history that we've been mentioning, the different resolutions that have happened, some of the planning for the prairie that's happened in the past, and some of the current ideas, visions, and people to connect with if that needs to move forward. Then in our next agenda item, we're going to touch base on schools again, as I said. And Hillary, did you prepare, we kind of had an exit interview, an exit poll for the advisory group to help us with more direction in where we're going at our next group meeting. Is that ready? One other thing I had mentioned is we had discussed before under the traffic topic that at one of our upcoming advisory group meetings, we may get the regional engineers who are dealing with traffic in their municipalities, as well as KMPO, to do a presentation that's live so that our advisory group members can see what's in the queue, what's being addressed, who's doing what, and how these groups are working together. So that will be on our agenda to discuss at the work group meeting in 2 weeks. And then Hillary, is that
So I'm trying to queue it up and I don't see the option. Allie, I was trying to get your take on that. I haven't done the exit survey before. Does that happen automatically? Hold on. Okay. We can't hear you.
You're not even muted and we can't hear you.
I know.
Can you?
Yeah. No, we can hear you.
No, I'm trying to get this to work.
Good. In any case, if it happens after the meeting, then it's just 2 questions. And the questions are basically regarding the fact that the item that we're planning on starting to focus most of our work now on, past these traffic items and the prairie items, is local worker housing. And that is been a huge topic, the prices, the accessibility, everything that's happening with that. And so this group will be discussing all items involved with local worker housing and what recommendations can be kind of pushed forward to help us regionally address what's happened in our community. So that's basically what one of the poll questions was about. And the other was basically tagging how we're doing, what the advisory group, they are an advisory group, and it's very important for us to get feedback from them on what we're moving into next to work on. So hopefully Allie can tell us how that's going to work.
Yes, and I just found the setting too. So it looks like it'll show up in the browser when the webinar ends. And I also selected that it'll show up in a follow-up email. So
good. So
hopefully it works.
everyone attending today, so all of the panel participants as well as the advisory group members will get that. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So
And
then
then there were a few questions we didn't get to fully answer. So we're gonna
we've
be
got,
able to send out information on that as well.
you have the answers right now and the attendees are available. We've got 4
I
minutes.
don't know, Amy, did you have the answer to the one question, Jeanette's follow-up question about separate recreation district?
What was that question? I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
Oh, no problem. It says, to Doug's question above, could there be a separate recreation district and still maintain the current surrounding districts, or would they have to be combined? Could the current sports complex concept be expanded to include other programming such as community garden spaces, farming and ag education, rose and arbor gardens, community science programs like stargazing theater, arts programs?
Yeah,
Will
in
it be-
fact, I was just thinking to Lauren's answer that if we had the space, I would love to do a community garden in some of that open space. I've read articles about communities that have done that, and it's very successful. So
Great.
I would think that they could be combined with other things. We were just told about the recreation district. And so I don't have a ton of information on that, but I'm sure we'll definitely be looking farther into that.
Great.
Great.
And that there's a lot of people with the background and the skill sets in this region that can help you with things like that. So it's good to make that connection. So
Okay,
for our
perfect.
agenda items for our work group, then I have touching base on schools, that we will be discussing whether our engineers will be prepared or be able to give us a traffic update. So we're addressing that priority, and that we're moving forward with local worker housing options, and that would incorporate tons of the white paper and other recommendations on code changes or things that have already been brought up in each of our comp plans, that we can move forward and collaboratively put together recommendations to councils and other jurisdictions to make those rules. So is there anything else? We have actually 1 minute left.
1 minute. Okay, there's one thing. So there's two things. So Ed has some questions about affordable housing. We'll send that separate because it's there's a lot that goes into figuring out what is an affordable housing price and all of that. So we'll send that out separately, and we can add that probably to the FAQs. But Barb Neal had a question or comment about protection of the aquifer. Is paramount, can the Aquifer Protection Board address protection of the land? And I don't think we have time today, but maybe we can figure out a way to get that in that small group.
And Barb, that's a great question. I think that as the housing assessment comes together, there's going to be a Zoom meeting that I believe had your organization, the tribe, our gem, about 7 or 8 different organizations, all dealing with water issues and how that impacts housing and the region. So I think during that Zoom meeting, there may be some great information that comes out as part of the housing assessment study that we can use in this group to move forward under the water topic too. So thank you for bringing that up. And did we have anything else? Any other input from advisory group? And the affordable housing issue is a question that is can be answered on multiple levels. So I think that's a good place to put it, is in the FAQs. Affordable can be a technical term regarding actual, nationwide housing income levels versus what an opinion someone thinks is affordable versus not affordable. So we want to make sure that we get those questions answered correctly in that. And under that, and not just in a cursory glance response. Okay, well, I thank you all very much. Please email me if you have questions. I'm out there at kmillercdaid.org. And if you have any other input for what the working group needs to be from the advisory capacity, please also do that. Keep in mind, those emails will be coming on the housing assessment to all of you advisory group members to participate in either one of the live interviews by Zoom, or to send out to your board level, administration level, or your other email to send out to staff and or frontline workers as it is appropriate. So thank you very much, everyone, for attending. And we got through this in our hour, which is what we always commit to doing. And I will look forward to getting back in touch with you on July the 26th, which is our next advisory full group meeting. And we'll be continuing to do work in the meantime. Have a good rest of your evening. And thank you all very much for being here.
Thank you. I'll end it now, and then the survey questions will pop up. So please take those. Thanks so much.
Please don't forget to take those survey questions. We need the input.
Great. Thank you.